I'm just gratified to see how much people have grown and the businesses that have been built, not only in these countries, but from you and the people around here that have then gone and expanded their businesses, whether it be into India or whether it be into Indonesia or back into Australia or to Europe or to all of these other places around the world. It's a testament to the longevity and the robustness of the business and the power of the human spirit when this business and opportunity is delivered into the hands of somebody who is waiting for it or who is at a time in their life where they're ready for something of substance. Have you found that? Heck, I just look at my situation that, had I been shown this business when I was a cadet at the Royal Military College, a future diamond, but I wouldn't have been interested because that wasn't my inspiration at the time. I was completely blinkered. I was focused. To that point in my life, I was completely obsessed with being selected and then graduating and receiving my commission. I couldn't see beyond that because there was no reason to. That was a very bright future, and it was, for the time that I spent there in the full-time army, a wonderful career, and I've subsequently served for many years in the Army Reserve now, and had the opportunity to be able to command a regiment that trains young officers and be chief of staff of a brigade headquarters and things. So I've really enjoyed that. But it wasn't until years later, a bit older, where my circumstances changed. Then with a wife who had a career and the desire to have family. You relate to this, don't you? Because it affects you. It's affected probably most of the people in this room and certainly most of the people that you'll be showing the plan to. Nothing seems to happen until the opportunity comes in contact with a person who is ready, willing and able. I suppose I want to talk to you during this leadership meeting about the lesson that I've learnt in this last 12 months of building the business. That was posed as a question at our weekend seminar by one of the speakers. And it was a good question. And I would pose that question to you now. If somebody was to ask you, maybe your wife, your husband, maybe your children, maybe somebody in your team, your upline, your coach, and they were to say to you, based on 12 months that have gone by in your life, with all of your experiences and all your heartbreaks and all your joys and overcomings, all of the effort that you've put forward, all of hopefully the lessons that you've learned, what would be the one great takeaway lesson from that has changed you in some way such that this next year is not going to be the same as last year or the years prior to that? Are you with me? I mean, wouldn't it be sad if none of us could look back at the previous 12 months and claim that we got at least one thing that we can then apply in our future life to make sure that our future is not our past? I mean, that's a good question. I'll answer that for you in a second from my perspective. But I suppose that's the other side of this. It's all about perspective. People ask me once, what do you do for a living? I think the answer to that is a beauty. The answer is, I argue. What do you do for a living? I argue. You tell me, this doesn't look any good. Yes, it is. I don't think I could do this. Yes, you could. It's not worth it. Yes, it is. I argue for a living. And here's the funny thing. If you win, you lose. If I win, you win. In relation to this business, because I hear, and so somebody gets upset and say, "Look, man, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not arguing against you. I'm not meaning to be objectionable. I'm not fighting against you. From my perspective, I'm trying to fight for you because I know that you've got capacity here. There are possibilities, and man, I'm trying to throw out every story I know, everything that I've got." So you've heard the expression, somebody who's an authentic leader. You heard that expression? Authentic leadership. May I suggest to you at the leadership level, as aspiring leaders amongst us, maybe we should start with just being authentically human to start with. Let's not worry so much about being an authentic leader. Let's talk about being authentically human. And this whole arguing thing, people say, oh, well, the customer's always right. The customer's mostly always wrong. in my experience, and in the outside world where you're talking about a product and the reputation of some other business or whatever, I think that makes sense. You say, yes, okay, sir, you're right. How can I help you? Yes, we'll take that back. No, it was our fault. It was probably broken in the package beforehand. I'm sure you didn't drop it or whatever else. But here, authenticity is about being honest, not brutally honest in most cases, and being sensitive to where somebody's at, but nevertheless being strong enough and having enough posture and belief in who I am and who you are and what you're offering, that you will not accept and just lie down and accept at face value some ridiculous notion that they might have. Jim Dornan once said, you know, it's unacceptable. There are lots of reasons that people might miss this business. Not necessarily good reasons, but there are understandable reasons why people would miss this business. You just want to make sure they don't miss it for the wrong reason, because they think that, you know, it takes too long when it doesn't. And it takes too... Because, as Jim said, if somebody's got a negative opinion about the Amway Corporation, I mean, how could you have a negative opinion about one of the world's leading corporations? Few companies in history has ever done what this company has done. 54 years in business, 100 countries and territories around the world, 1,000 patents, 800 patents pending, won a United Nations award. Both the current chairman of the board of the Amway Corporation and Steve Van Andel's father, the founder, one of the founding, the founding chairman of the corporation, Jay Van Andel, were both chairman of the US Chamber of Commerce, the largest business organisation in the world. Here's almost a $12 billion company that's paid out more than $40 billion in bonuses over more than half a century. And people run around saying, oh, well, I don't know whether that's going to work or whether it's legal or whether it's fair. I mean, okay, I know you want to slap those people sometimes, and that's probably not going to be the result that you want, but maybe you should just roll around on the floor laughing. If they're prepared to say something stupid, are you prepared to accept that? Or is it reasonable that you should... They don't seem to worry about offending you. Well, maybe you shouldn't worry so much about offending them in standing up for the business. You see, if you start criticising my business, it's like criticising my wife. It's like walking down the street and stopping in front of my wife and saying, ugh, excuse me? This is the woman I love. I'm not interested in your opinion. I'm more likely to smack that person in the mouth. Well, this is my business. I love this business. I chose this business. If you criticise this business, you're criticising all of my experiences with this business and thousands of people that I love and respect that have built this business and stand for something. So when people start criticising, it gets my back up. And as future leaders in the business, as current leaders and future bigger leaders in the business, if that doesn't annoy you, if that doesn't sort of grate with you and cause you to be a little bit defensive, then I fear for your success in the future, because maybe it doesn't mean enough to you yet. Does that make sense? So perspective. Things change. And Jim said, you know, if somebody's got a bad opinion of Amway, it can't be because they've got a bad opinion of the corporation. It's probably because to them, Amway is not a business, Amway is a person. That makes sense, doesn't it? Maybe they ran into me 25, 30 years ago when I was first starting off, and they said something silly, and I slammed them for it. And I said, well, you're an idiot. What would you know? Or they turned around to you and said, you'll never make this. And that was enough to get you to say something in response. Or maybe they were part of your team when you were early on in the business and you got distracted because something else was a priority in your life. And they said, well, I was sponsored by that guy. You say he's a future diamond. He didn't help me. Now, there's always a little element of truth in it, isn't there? And from their perspective, perhaps they're absolutely right. Maybe they didn't get enough help from me in the early days. Maybe I was distracted. Maybe my people skills were poor. And so they're completely, from their perspective, it's reasonable that they should say, it doesn't work, when in fact their version of it didn't work. You know, maybe that's the silly person's version, where they think it's possible and likely that they could make $100,000 a year by just doing Facebook and watching TV and never doing any work or showing any plans or changing their priorities. You know, I think that's a silly person's version. I think that's a naive and immature way of looking at anything. Nothing of value is going to come without some sacrifice and some whether you call it a sacrifice or investment, it's going to take effort. And if it's worthwhile, fewer people will achieve it than don't achieve it. Hire the fewer. That's why we celebrate people that get the gold medal. That's why we celebrate people that come first in the Formula One or come first in academic results at university or school. That's why we celebrate our children running first in a little race or something like that. So this is no different in that regard, but just have perspective. Where you were is not where you are now and where you will be. The business that they came into contact with is not you. Is not you now and is not you in the future. And I would implore you, I would suggest to you strongly that if you haven't already done so, you develop, number one, the posture, but also the understanding, the belief, and then from that, the stories to tell to help you explain to those people as reasonably as you can how it has changed. Does that make sense? It is up to us as business professionals to develop the stories. Now, the best stories are those that can be developed from our own experience. There's nothing as powerful as being able to tell your own experience. Man, I know exactly where you're coming from. When I started in the business, this guy did blah, 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 blah. Or developing the skills of being able to say, hey, whoa, back off. Take a Valium, relax, chill. What's your problem? What happened to you, man? How can you be so negative about something that I think is just the greatest business in the world? The people I love and the people respect. I mean, what on earth could have happened? What happened to you? And they start telling you, and they don't have to go on for 20 minutes wringing their hands and crucifying everybody that was ever associated with a business, but they start telling you a story, and as if you've got enough of it, you say, whoa, okay, I get you. If that had happened to me, I would have responded the same way. Can I ask you a question? Do you think if he treated those other people the way he treated you, do you think they would have responded the way you responded? Yeah. Okay. On that basis, do you think that guy went on to become very successful in the business, unless he changed? No. Well, given that Amway, after 50 years, is growing, the business is incredibly successful, obviously, would it be fair to say, obviously, most people don't do or behave to other people the way that guy did? Because otherwise, in a business where anybody can quit and get their money back, and every single product that's ever been sold from the business comes with a 3-month unconditional satisfaction guarantee, if the products were no good, everybody would have given them back. If the business was no good, everybody would be resigning, and it wouldn't still be growing, wouldn't still be this living legend of a business. Would that be reasonable? He said, yeah. I said, okay. So my question to you, John, my question to you, Derek, is, are you scarred for life by that experience, or would you like to hear from me how the successful people do it? Just develop your story. Just work on your story. It's perspective. I think there's nothing that gives perspective better than this. Some of you will appreciate this. This is in my latest little iPhone 6. It's called a nano SIM card, right? This little thing here, which is roughly the size of my little fingernail, is 64 gigabytes. To put that into perspective. Now, most of there's some young ones probably wouldn't recognise it, but everybody remembers the floppy disk. The floppy disk from computers. Now, not the original ones, which were the bigger ones, the 6.25 inch, but the smaller ones, which were 1.44 megs. Where today with my camera, I'd need about 18 of those just to fill up 18 of those just to represent one photo taken on my new digital camera. All right? But 1.44 megs. And this, which would be 0.5 millimetre thick, or 1/3 of a millimetre thick, and the size of my little fingernail, is 64 gigabytes. That is the equivalent of more than 44,000 of the floppy disks. That's the equivalent of a stack of those floppy disks more than 60 metres high. And some of us have still got old computers at home with those floppy disk drives in them and still got a collection of the old things, haven't we? I mean, how far has the world come, and where would that be in the next 5 years? Everything changes. Not always for the better, but one thing is certain, and that is change. So, look, let me talk to you about my takeaway lessons from the last 12 months. And this was an interesting one because it was a failure. And we often learn more from failures than we learn from successes, don't we? And it was a shock to me. The lesson that good leadership or successful leadership and relationship skills are not a permanent change or a gift bestowed by age, a title, or a pin. And I know this because I was working with a young group that we'd started in Sydney that had come in downline from my daughter and her partner. And so I'm highly motivated to build this group of young people and to help them build the business. And I found myself wondering why it wasn't growing, why they weren't coming back, and I was pouring myself out to these people and going and driving the miles and doing all of this sort of stuff. But in retrospect, in hindsight, and this was as a result of the courageous approach by one of the leaders of that group, who came up to me, and he's a young man, and he had the courage to come up to me and said, "Listen, I've got a problem, and here's the problem," and respectfully, blah blah blah, and he explained that I had been rough with his people, I had been impatient, that I had been rude to some of these people, or it was perceived. But here's the thing: I didn't think that I was being rude. Perhaps directive, perhaps helping these young Gen Y people get their act together, giving them a smack up the backside occasionally because they desperately needed it, because they were spending too much time with Facebook, too much time doing something else, and you feel like saying, what's with that? What's with that? Because for those of us that are older, certainly as a baby boomer, I mean, my parents modelled, and then I grew up experiencing the fact that, if I made a mess, I'd clean it up. If I failed my first year at university, which I did because I spent too much time in the Copacabana disco, then after I'd been stood to attention at the age of 18 in front of a general who joined the dots for me and said, "If you fail any more subjects, your dream is kaput, you're out." Then the following year I get distinctions and credits. Not because I'm smarter, but now I start to do some work because somebody helped me understand that my efforts in the present will affect my results in the future. Which harks back to that wonderful book, The Common Denominator of Success by Albert E. N. Gray, available in the public domain from the web. I would hope everyone has read that and embraced the concepts there, where he talks about the difference between failures and successes is that successful people have embraced the habit of doing those things that unsuccessful people won't do. Not because it fits their character trait or their personality any more than anybody else, but simply because they are motivated by pleasing results, not pleasing methods, and are inclined to do whatever is necessary to get what they want, whereas the failures will do what is comfortable and then spend the rest of their lives rationalising whatever results they can get from doing that which is comfortable. And I'm seeing this and experiencing this with these young people, and it didn't work. And so but here's the funny thing. I teach relationship skills. One of my great skills has been relationship skills, which I've built up over the years, both through my military experience and mentoring young officer cadets and trying to apply it in the home. And man, I'm good at that when I think about it. Leadership is a decision. Got to be a reason, but leadership is a decision more than it is anything else. Good relationship skills is a decision. And so what does it require? Number one, it requires intent, a reason. It's important. I need to be a leader. I need to be able to work with people. I need to be able to embrace people where they're at and help them move forward. And so I will decide to get good at that. It requires humility, selflessness, and service. I was doing the service thing. I thought I was being selfless, but the way I was communicating wasn't where they were at. I was insensitive. It requires effort. no surprise. But the leadership requires effort, not in leading and doing it yourself, but in effort, sometimes in just shutting up, effort in going the extra mile to try and be where they're at. And finally, it requires vigilance. Don't assume. To think that, that technology is the same as it was 25 years ago when it's moved on. To assume that because I'm this pin level, because I'm a leaders club, if it's dangerous for a diamond, and a diamond can make that mistake, then, anybody could make that mistake. It's a decision. And then it is service. It is a sense of humility. In fact, this is a wonderful book. This was given to me as a Christmas present by my daughter's partner, and he is the father of my grandchild, my little baby grandchild Alice. And Neil is a wonderful young man, and he gave me this book. It's the Harvard Business Review's 10 must-reads on leadership. And one of the chapters in here, which I absolutely love, I haven't actually read the chapter yet, don't need to. The power of it is in the title itself. Where is it? Page 115. Level 5 Leadership by Jim Collins. The Triumph of Humility and Fierce Resolve. Man, that tells you a lot just in the title, doesn't it? As a leader, I get a lot out of just that title. Leadership, the triumph of humility and fierce resolve. Now, this is not a commercial, it's one of the big cottage industries in the world, is the churning out of so much stuff, and most of it, especially the stuff that is not filtered through the Network 21 continuing education program and recommended book program, a lot of it's just a regurgitation of other material. It's somebody on a bandwagon trying to make some bucks. You could be wasting your time. You could go off on a tangent with some of the material that's untried, and because it's been written by an academic. A lot of it's written by perhaps a commercial opportunist, somebody that's good at writing, perhaps written by an academic. Oftentimes it is not written by the likes of a Jim Dornan or a Mitch Sala or somebody, or a John Maxwell. It's written by somebody that has never done at the coalface and built an organisation from nothing like these people have. So you want to be careful what you're listening to. That's the power of the continuing education program, because it's listened to and filtered, and then the material that comes out is endorsed by those who have more to lose than you or I if the wrong message gets through to their group. That's a powerful, powerful protection for the material that's coming to us. And this book here, though, this is written by some of the greatest authors and researchers and doctors on the subject of the planet from the world's leading business school, which is the Harvard Business School, in my opinion. So I thought this was a great read, and I started to go through this material, and I'll speak more about that in things. So, triumph of humility and fierce resolve, I like that part. That reminds me, when you're talking about humility and fierce resolve and selflessness and service, it reminds me of a speech and teaching that was given by Bob Andrews many years ago. The metaphor was that of when you do something good for somebody else, it's like taking change and putting it in your pocket. And in all of our relationships, there is a balance in that account based on how much has been put in and how much is withdrawn. So if I let you down, I've got to reach into the pocket and it takes some money out of that account. If I do something fantastic for you, it puts a lot of money in that account. And that's, like I said, it comes down to about vigilance. Vigilance. Because in all of our relationships, you can't just wear a pin and think the fact that I help so many other people go platinum and diamond or whatever is going to then influence my interactions with you. Does that make sense? I mean, that's why you can't... If that was the case, somebody would simply go diamond and then sponsor a whole bunch of people who would be so inspired and in awe of what they'd done. You say, do this, do this, do that, and they would willingly fall over themselves to do it because there is so much awesomeness in you. And of course, that's just rubbish. It all comes down to... They don't care what you did. They don't care what I did. What you care about is what? What do you care about? in relation to your sponsor, in relation to your platinum or your emerald or your diamond? What do you care about? You care about what they're going to do for you, don't you? When you're working with somebody, do they care that you've just broken a new Leaders Club leg somewhere else? Well, yay! Goody for you. What are you going to do for me? How can you help me? How does that empower me? Now, sometimes it is empowering for the other group and for the whole team, sure. But as Jim Dornan also one time said, our people will always have polluted belief unless the person that they know best, you, walks across that stage. And Simon Thompson has developed a fantastic talk on that, where he talks about the gears of leadership. The first gear is, you just do it yourself one-on-one. The second gear is you do a group plan. The third thing is you teach somebody and you do a group plan for one of your downline. The third thing, or the fourth gear, when you're really moving it in, and that's where you get momentum, and that's where you move on to platinum and emerald and diamond, is when you're then empowering others, where you've duplicated the art of somebody else being able to show group plans. If you haven't worked this out, I see the people getting recognised here for showing plans, and more power to you. But man, how many of those are group plans? When in the early days, most of your plans are going to be one-on-ones, for sure. And if you're going through a spurt of now putting some more people, personals into the group, of course, there might be a stack of one-on-ones in there. But every time I do a one-on-one, it adds to my group. It adds to my team. I show one plan, perhaps I get one person. Now, we know it doesn't work that way. I show maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 plans and get one person. So that really slows things down, but eventually it adds one person. It is only through the power of a group presentation that I can multiply my results. You talk about momentum. There is no momentum with one-on-ones. You do a one-on-one because you must, in order to find the avenue through which you can generate momentum through a group plan. Is this new? Hopefully this is not news to people. We spoke about this with some of our leaders over lunch. When I'm sitting with a brand new person, what am I looking for? I mean, some of our emeralds will know that. What am I looking for when I sponsor you? What am I after? Your list. I'm after the list to multiply, to help you. And now this is for the right reason. You may be a future Crown Ambassador, but you can't do it by yourself. The whole mentoring process and the master and apprentice process is one of knowledge, or learn, or teach, demonstrate, and practice. As opposed to university education, and many of us will have a university education, but that's learn. Learn, work part-time, learn for 3 years, 4 years before you're released on an unsuspecting public. Once you've got your degree, and then you can go and be an accountant or be a doctor or be a dentist or be whatever it is. This business is not like that. This business is closer to vocational education and training, where it's on-the-job training, on-the-job experience. You have mentorship through a master. You are doing your apprenticeship. And twice a week you go to TAFE, or what we call TAFE, or Technical College, where you learn the theory, and the following day you turn up. So you've learnt, you get taught. The next day you see the master demonstrate, and then under their supervision you practice. This is such a powerful concept. And it's proven. So, Bob Andrews talks about putting change in pockets. I mean, look, there's nothing, if you do something really great for somebody, as I mentioned, you can really add to that account. But there's nothing that you can ever do that puts a permanent, as I've noticed, put a permanent positive balance in that account. You let people down, you are insensitive, you're rude to them, it sucks it dry. Through neglect. You've helped some person build a fantastic business, or you've helped them do this or that, and then you don't speak to them or see them or mentor them or help them in any way for the next year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years. And then just like your bank account, the fees will eat it up. And there's just not much there. You might see somebody and wave to them occasionally. And so there's action. And that's why one of the things I put in there that's important for many people is scheduling. Well, that's a weird one. Well, no, if there's going to be action involved, and there's work involved, there's effort and investment involved, for each of the people, is it possible to build a base and build relationships? I mean, what is a base? We talk about building bases in depth. I mean, what is a base? Okay, somebody that's got basic skills, for sure. Somebody that knows how to do that. But what about a base in relationships? A base in attitude? A base in bonding between you as the owner or the leader of that team, if you like, and this newest person? Have you got a master-apprentice relationship with this person? As Bob Andrews said, is there a balance in that account as a direct result of your intervention and your helping and your stepping out and driving the miles and doing plans and not just getting success for them, but crying with them and being with them when it does fail? One of the biggest mistakes is people are scared of failure. Man, this is one of the only environments in the world where it's safe to fail. There is no success long term without the failure. And yet so many people won't undertake anything that's risky because they're scared of the ridicule, and we know where that comes from. It comes from our own family upbringing. It certainly comes from school. It certainly comes from jobs and corporations where other people don't have a vested interest, and your peer group does not have a vested interest in you outperforming them. Whereas in this room, even across the lines of sponsorship, somebody in the Harris group achieves brilliantly, somebody in the Sala group achieves brilliantly, somebody in the Leonard group achieves brilliantly. We can all take pride in that. And we can all take our newest person and say, man, look at that. They can do that, you can do that. Relate to the success wherever it comes. I mean, it pays to be generous here. What a wonderful environment in which to work. People just take it for granted. I know that. Because I'm one of them. I mean, it's hard to be grateful all the time and to be totally appreciative all the time of the many benefits that we enjoy. But that was a great example that Bob Andrews gave. And as I'm saying there, the scheduling is, well, what do you do? Well, I will ask the question. You don't have to answer it, okay? It's a rhetorical question. When was the last time, how often do you call or send a note or send a text? I don't care what you do. I mean, a call is better. A drop-in is better still. A gift, remembering somebody's birthday, remembering somebody's name day, whatever it is, remembering somebody's wedding anniversary, ringing them up, how are you going? Do you do that? And here's the next thing. As a leader, as a professional, do you do that when it occurs to you, or do you do it because it's diarised? And as a matter of function in your business, that's an important part for you as the owner and the chief executive officer and the operations officer and the human resources. You're all of them, right? You are the human resources manager for your organisation. And if this was any other organisation and it was a $1 billion budget or a $100 million budget, there are certain communications things that you would need to do on a daily basis. And isn't that stupid that we work in corporations where we know that goes on, or we actually have to do it ourselves or employ others to do that, and yet in our own business, for which we are totally responsible, we won't do it ourselves. So I would suggest to you that if your result is, and your goal is to be a professional, to make money in this and to build something that is both profitable and sustainable and robust into the future, then the relationship thing is not something that you can leave to chance. One must be vigilant. You cannot get to the stage where you think, well, I'm a platinum. And here's the thing, here's the danger of it. You don't actually get to the stage where, I'm a diamond, I don't have to worry about that now. It's like a frog in the cold water, and the water's slowly getting warmer and warmer and warmer. It creeps up on you. You don't think about it. Nobody would maliciously or knowingly, well, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to engage with them. I'm just going to just tell them what I think. None of us do that. And that's why counselling is critical. Counselling is critical. Now, in this particular case, I had the advantage of some counselling from a downline who had the courage to come up to me because he desperately wanted to be part of our business. And he appreciated all the efforts, but he just he's going to go a long, long way. And I'm going to help him. And I'm going to be better next year than I was last year because of his courage and because I want to do the right thing by him. I want to do the right thing by everybody, and I will never again make the mistake of not being vigilant in regards to my relationships with him and with everybody else that I'm working with. Does that make sense? So, one of the other articles in here, it's by two gentlemen, Robert Goffey and Gareth Jones. Why should anybody be led by you? Wow. Good question. Hard question. Have you ever asked yourself that question? His comment, real leaders don't need a training program. Wait for it. To convince their employees that they care. So he's not saying real leaders don't need a training program. He's saying real leaders don't need to implement a training program to prove or to suggest to their employees that they as the leader care. And this echoes back to that magnificent book that was recommended to us by Jim Dornan, which is Leadership and Self-Deception, by the Arbinger Institute. And that came out on the recommended book program. Maybe it came out here, certainly in Australia and the US. We had access to that book. And it speaks about a leader, an authentic leader, being in the box or out of the box. Here's what it means there. And this all comes down to the sensitivity and caring. Here's the summary statement or the premise to it. Rats are smart enough to desert a sinking ship. Dogs know when you're scared of them. And people are smarter than rats and dogs. And he makes the point in this they make the point in this article that people know when they're being manipulated. And there's nothing worse, they say, than somebody that's just come off some sort of management program and they come there and suddenly they're all full of caring for their employees and setting up little meetings and tell me, what are your dreams and goals and everything like that. And it's just somebody going through the motions. And this is why it's been a theme of mine for many, many years now, doing the right things for the right reasons. Not because some book says that you should do it. The reason that we do these things is because it's the right thing to do. And by implication, that goes to every aspect of working with somebody and starting somebody in the business. So when I'm starting somebody in the business and they've got a limited amount of money, am I doing that because I think it's going to put money in my pocket or that it's the best thing for them? If I'm talking about what level of the continuing education program that they should start on. Sometimes I see people carrying on and say, you should start on the professional thing straight away. Now look, depending on where somebody's at, and as leaders, you should be developing the skills and the instincts to know whether it is appropriate or not. So it's all about the right thing at the right time. The appropriate tools for this person now. If somebody's already paid a price in industry or in their family, they're at a stage of life, they've got enormous experience, or they've been in the business before, and maybe they were a platinum before, and they come back in and they say, man, I don't want to stuff around, I want to go straight on the professional program. I need the book, I need the leadership material, I need to be going, I'm ready to go 100 miles an hour, and I've got form. I've got track record that should make you comfortable with the fact that this is within me, I can afford this, and it is worthwhile. It's no different than some kid that wants to go to university and he goes, and asking the tutor, and the tutor's trying to flog him third-year textbooks because maybe the tutor's making a bit of money on the side from the bookshop. Well, if you're doing IT, why would you start with a third-year text? Because the third-year text is going to be out of date in 3 years if it's IT. And it's implicit that if they haven't understood the first year's stuff, they probably won't understand the second and third year stuff anyhow. And our business can be like that. In terms of understanding the basics and doing the basics, they don't need third year texts. And they don't need an emerald and diamond to get them to Leaders Club and Executive Leaders Club, or even essentially to get them to platinum. Because the skills to get from 0 to platinum, in many respects, are different to the skills and the mindsets and what it takes to get from platinum to diamond. Master and apprentice, right? Just hard work and passion, lots of work and passion will get somebody to a platinum business. Now, it might be badly structured and it might be not that robust and there might not be enough people in the education program and so it might be a bit shaky. But man, I've seen lots of people over the years who are just full of passion. I mean, why is that? A brand new person can come in and they can scratch something on a page. It doesn't even look like a plan that you and I would recognise, and people join them. And that you and I have gone out there. You know, you do plan after plan after plan. You could wake me up in the middle of the night and I go out in either direction, show plans in my sleep, and I'll get up there and I'll pour my guts out to somebody and show them the plan and they go, Doesn't that drive you crazy? Some brand new person comes in and they join this new person. Why is that? What have they got that I haven't got? What have they got that you haven't got? Team, come on, shout it out. What? Passion. Belief. Hope. They probably don't have that much belief because what have they got to believe in? Only what they've seen across the stage. I'll tell you what the power is. The power is the fact that they've got hope. Either hope in the numbers and the dreams that they saw through your eyes when you showed them the plan, or they've come into a seminar or a preview and they've seen some people walk across the stage and they go, man, if that person can do this, I could do this. This guy spoke about how they were going to change their life and they were going to do this and buy this and do this and change the world. So maybe, just maybe, if all I want to do is make an extra $500 a month to pay for my children's education, I might be able to do that. There's nothing more powerful than hope. And what they've got is they've got hope in spades. So what are we missing out on? We get too cool. We get too process-driven. And from wherever we're at, we want to build the business. It all comes down to personal sponsoring. That's what I have to do. And I'm prospecting people all the time, whether it be through cycling or through my executive MBA program, because I'm back at university. I'm a uni student again. Because I have unfinished business. Just like Louis Carrillo, who had never finished that degree of his and went back to get his master's in aviation management. And I started my MBA in 1985. I did 2 years, 85, 86. Then finally came back to Sydney. I had 12 months to do, just my thesis basically to do, but I needed to replace Julia's income in 3 years. And back in 1987, when Julia was 27, she was making $100,000 a year, Australian. That was a lot of money for a 27-year-old in 1987. And so if I had completed my MBA, I might have been able to get out of the army, but I still would have it still would have taken a couple of years to climb my career, my income back up to what it was in the military. There's no way I would have replaced her income and mine. So I had 3 years to replace Julia's income. Well, what do? Well, I saw what Angie had done, my sponsor. And during 3 years, without a university degree, she had applied herself to this business and she was an emerald and she was retired and living at Balmoral Beach in Sydney. And I thought, man, if Angie can do this, I could do this. That was more than just hope. That was belief. Because here's somebody that I know well. I will leave it there. I suppose I just wanted to say that was the lesson that I had learnt. The lesson is vigilance. That relationships take work. It's a decision. All of the aspects, the skill aspects of leadership are a decision, and it requires effort and doing the right things for the right reasons. Cheers.